Hi and welcome. You just set peace in motion. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Jessica Ardeal, and today we have the great fortune of speaking with an international teacher, speaker, consultant, and animal professional with a wide range of experience. She is the co-creator of the experiential workshop, Linking Awareness, Intercellular Communication, A Healing Journey, and is a certified senior body talk for animals instructor and advanced certified practitioner. As an animal lover myself, it is a joy to have this opportunity to introduce Loesje Jacob. Loesje, thank you so very much for being with us today and sharing your insight as we set peace in motion.
Thanks for having me, Jessica. And wow, that was a mouthful. You're talking about me?
Well,
I'm very humbled. Let's just leave it at that.
You know, I know your work and the results that you facilitate are so profound. And to say that you are a rock star to me might be appropriate. For
me, the whole thing is about remaining humble. And when people put the rock star or like, oh my God, for me, it's just been, that's why I'm here and why I came to the earth. And I'm just blessed all the time to be able to be engaged in my passion and be learning from nature and the animal kingdom.
It's so important that we raise awareness of the animal consciousness so we can all tap into what you know and utilize already. You've traveled all over the world working with both wild and domestic animals. Is there one experience that might stand out to you, maybe working in the wild, that really confirmed to you that there is this universal language that is quite real, and animals even in the wild really do have an understanding of the laws of the universe?
Okay, so I'm sure you might have a few body talk people or people that have had sessions with body talk. So here's a combined story. I'm in Sarasota, Florida. I was actually in Clearwater, and I was sitting in on a class that the founder, John Veltheim, was facilitating, and I'm listening, but I'm sort of daydreaming, and in that daydreaming state, I, in my imagination, think that a dolphin has called me, and I'm going like, is that possible? And I, in my imagination, think that this dolphin has said, can you please meet me after class because I want to teach you some new frequencies to help animals and humans. And I'm thinking, wow, but then I thought, well, just a minute. If my friend called me on a cell phone to go for coffee somewhere or a tea or get together, I'd say, sure, I'll meet you. I thought, well, what's the difference between a cell phone or the aspect of myself that can receive nonverbal information? So after class, as promised, I went out to the ocean and I went into the water and I said in my imagination again to this dolphin, I'm waiting for you, and I'll take however long it takes. I'll wait for you. So there was a few people with me, and after about half an hour, they got tired of waiting, and they left. So now I'm by myself treading water in the ocean, and 5 minutes later, I can feel the dolphin frequency in the ocean. And I said to this dolphin, if you're really coming to meet me, can you warn me before you get here? Because I don't want to be so afraid you're a shark, I'm going to miss the opportunity. About 3 minutes later, this single dolphin breaches about 40 feet out and warns me that it's coming and slowly swims up to me about 6 feet away, and sonars all about 180 degrees around me, and would move around sonar, and just hovered there. And you got to know by then I'm just crying, and I'm saying to that dolphin, thank you so much. Dolphin says, you're welcome, and he swims off.
That just gives me chills hearing that. It's so amazing that we have that connection and that you have the ability to tune in. So how could we better understand animals and tune into them ourselves? Is taking a course the best way to start upon that, or just going into our mind's eye?
I could say just be a child and go back into your imagination and go through that door in the heart and create a connection. And a lot of people will say, that sounds great, but I can't do it. And I would also say, go out and take some classes. But you have to use your discernment today because there's so much out there. So how do you find what works for you? Use your intuition, use your discernment. And one of my things for years when people said, you got to teach animal communication. And I know, but how do I also incorporate the fact that we have limiting belief systems, ideas, attitudes as humans that create filters that stand in the way of that clear information and pure information from an animal? And all of a sudden, what I'm speaking out loud for the animal is my projection. It's not what the animal intended. And how could I include that in an animal communication class? Because a lot of them didn't include that. And I saw a lot of anthropomorphizing of the animals, a lot of over-emotionalizing of the animals, and not sending their message as purely intended. So obviously that became a part of the linking awareness concept and the download that I share on the CD. That is partially a self-healing process to help get rid of the filters that stop us from being able to receive information from nature and animals, and also that stand in our way of sharing it congruently as the animal or the tree or the rock intended.
So how can we help shift the perception in society that animal beings are less than or inferior? It's really the other way around. They're actually more tuned in than most of us are. So how can we remind ourselves that nature is taking care of itself?
That's a really good question. Obviously, by watching certain media, by listening to interviews like this. But obviously, I also believe that it's experiential, and you got to get out in nature, and you got to get out with the animals and be open to receiving and observing how they're interacting with each other and how perfect it is. And that's why all my classes are experiential. They're not live streamed. They're not recorded. You got to show up, because once you've had that experience with that animal or with nature or with that wild orangutan, you could never forget it. And the whole mode of the way you live starts to change. Your perception has changed forever because of the experience of it. So how can we get people in the cities, my friends in Tokyo and some of the big cities, even Cape Town or Singapore, how can we get them to come into nature, experience and remember that connection and the wisdom of Mother Nature and the animal kingdom? Get out there, join a group that goes out and has all kinds of experiences.
Are there a few case studies that you might be able to share of working with an animal, either wild or domestic, that maybe had been exhibiting behavioral issues that shifted or resolved after you worked with them?
Oh, the easiest one that pops up is an orange cat, a domestic cat. And if you've been in my class, you may have heard this one before, but it's such a profound one. So I got a call from a local veterinarian. She was working with the orange cat, and the pathology was the cat wasn't eating anymore and it wouldn't go outside. And the guardians of this cat was an older couple. This two cats, no children anymore. They loved their cats. So they brought the cat to the vet clinic, and the vet, she did all the tests and inconclusive. And the cat went home, still not eating, still not going outside, came back a week later, losing weight. So they decided to do an exploratory surgery, and still inconclusive. They tried some antibiotics just because, no change. So within a short period of time, the cat came back, and they had to put the cat on a feeding tube. So now in the meantime, the couple had a family trip planned overseas, and they had to make a huge decision to cancel their trip or stay and take care of their cat. Well, for them, there's no question they were going to stay with their cat. So they didn't have any insurance on the trip, and they decided, didn't worry about the money. They canceled their trip and stayed with the cat. By now, no resolve on the cat. So they got asked by the vet to go to a specialty clinic in Vancouver, British Columbia, and they took the cat there. And another exploratory, inconclusive. The cat's still on a feeding tube. So I get home from traveling, and they get a hold of me. Could I please work with this cat and this couple? Sure. So they bring the cat, and I do some basic body talk, and then I'm sitting quietly, and I hear this whisper of a thought, and it kind of sounds like this: "I'm not really sick, And I'm going, "Excuse me? I'm not really sick, I'm faking it." And I think, oh my goodness, a cat could really say that to me? And so I decide to engage, and this is all, this is all nonverbal. It's silently in my thoughts. And I say to the cat, So if you're faking it, why are you faking it? Because if my mom and dad went on this trip, they were going to be in a bad car accident, and I didn't want them to get hurt, so I make them stay home. And I'm thinking, are you kidding? So I have this way that I check, should I even tell the owners or not, or is this just energy information? I think I'm very clear, tell the owners. So I say to the guardians, I don't understand what your cat's saying, but this is what your cat has said to me, and it's about you not getting in an accident. And, the couple looked at me and they said, that's amazing. We were going to rent a car when we were gone, but we were really nervous about the car rental. And so we totally make sense. We're so glad we didn't go. So then a few minutes later, the couple says to me, so now is Cat going to get better? And I went, I don't know. And then I hear this other voice in my head again, or in my mind or in my heart. Tell them to put out my favorite food, salmon, and I'll eat in about 5 days. So I tell them this, and they go home. About a week later, I get a phone call back from the veterinarian. Loesje, you won't believe this. Well, you probably will. They went home. 5 days later, the cat started eating salmon. They came here a couple of days later. We've removed the feeding tube. The cat is perfectly fine.
Wow.
I know. Like these stories, I know they can validate what we're trying to talk about. And I know it's hard for a lot of people to believe that that's possible, that an animal has that level of consciousness. But my thing is, if we could really embrace this, we could see that the consciousness medicine, things like body talk, things like linking awareness, communicating with animals and nature, it's not a separate thing from veterinary medicine, from allopathic modalities. It's integrative and it's complementary, and it really helps sort of flesh out the big picture with nonverbal animals. And let's not forget that would also include nonverbal children, and in utero babies, for example. And what about the cells of our body? They can send communication at a level as well.
Loesje, I'm curious, when did you first start to tune into that voice and that knowing and trust that? Was it something that's always been with you, or did you take time to develop it on purpose?
I will give credit to, not blame, my kids are great. I'll give credit to my children. When they were young, I started noticing that, my daughter could see through walls and she knew what you were thinking, and my son could communicate with the animals, and he was always sitting down helping an animal. And I looked at my kids and went, wow, like, that's different. Oh no, what if they're like that? Maybe I'm like that. And then I had a dog and cat grooming business for 30 years, and I ran dog training classes, agility, flyball, and also ran a 4-H club for dogs for 8 years for dogs and children. And so the more I started working with the animals, I started having this weird experience. My hands would be on the animal, and I would have pictures or thoughts or feelings, and they weren't mine. And well, if they're not mine, there's no one else in the room. Whose could they be? And then I started realizing it was the dog that I was grooming that was sending me information non-verbally about someone in the family, about the grandma, or about another dog. And I started to pay attention finally to that. But we're talking, 30 or so years ago. And at that time, it's like, I don't think I should tell anybody this. So I just kept watching it. So those are my earliest experiences. It wasn't a childhood thing for me. Certainly a huge connection with nature, always out in the bush, always out in nature, and going up to the riding stables. I never had a horse, but I could ride the horse that no one else could ride. Why was that? Yeah.
With all the traveling that you do and exploring the world, how can we keep up with that and find out more about your courses, Loesje?
Well, I think we have two great websites for Body Talk. The bodytalksystem.com has all of my Body Talk classes listed on there. And then my personal business would be www.linkingawareness.com. And please go on there, because we're trying to help raise awareness through videos, and our videos are getting more amazing all the time. And you'll also notice that I have 5 other facilitators teaching around the world. We have Ariane Vanhoff in South Africa. We have Dr. Yilin Lee in Singapore. She's a veterinarian. We have Carrie Lessick in British Columbia. She's a dog trainer. We have Martha Burkett in Alberta. Martha is a horse trainer, and she's also a dog person. She rode across Canada by herself on her horse to raise awareness to the Children's Wish Foundation, and her and her horse raised over $300,000. So she's a great horsewoman, and she's also facilitating this class. And we have Jackie McIntyre out of Australia that's also traveling and teaching. So all of that information and more is on my website.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you all for all that you're doing. It's just so profound and so important. And can people have individual sessions with you regarding their pets? Is that an option as well?
It's still barely an option because I'm so busy facilitating and developing new classes. Mm-hmm. But certainly there's contact information on my website. And if I don't have time, I'm very, very blessed to have some other practitioners that work with me that I can refer to. So please do contact me. On my website, you'll see my personal assistant. Her name is Boover Stay, and she is 17, and I can highly recommend sessions with her. She travels the world with me. She works with the orangutans, and she also takes care of all coordinating my classes for me as well.
Wonderful. Loesje, thank you so much. Would it be too greedy to ask for one more story you could share before we go?
It's not too greedy. And on top of that, I want to put a plug in for please nurture our young people. They are truly amazing. I do sponsor a lot of youth and young people to come to classes and trips, but I truly believe that they can teach us so much about this nonverbal world. And I also believe that they need support to understand that some of the labels they've been given, whether it's ADD, ADHD, autism, are just labels because people don't understand that they are so subtle sense aware. Lincoln Awareness is a great class for any age group, and we do classes just for youth and children to make them more aware of their 6 subtle senses. And please, if you're out there and you're facilitating or you have youth, let them experience these kind of classes because it helps them to understand themselves better.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that. So important.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want another story, there's so many. You'll have to give me what species, what wild, domestic. Do you want a dog story?
I'm really curious if you've had any experience with pigs.
Absolutely. But this is going to be an interesting one. It's a personal story from years ago. And we raised some wild boars, and we raised them with a lot of love, and eventually they were going to feed us. So I do believe strongly that there is an exchange that happens when I'm in the jungle with Aboriginals and First Nations in the forests. They will ask permission for the exchange of the flesh and in relation to nurturing their bodies when they need food, whether it's a plant, whether it's an animal or a bird, it's very consciously exchanged. So we raised some wild boars, and the day came to take them to, I don't know what word to use, but to be able to kill the physical body so that we could take the meat. So a couple of guys came with a trailer, and they could not get the pigs in the trailer. And I was watching, and they didn't want to interfere, and I thought, you know what, I have to go down there and practice what I preach. So the guys were tired and the pigs weren't getting in the trailer. I sat with the pigs and I said, pigs, I said, thank you so much for the time you've spent with us. And I really appreciate why you came. And I want to thank you for feeding my family for the next year. And your time here has been really appreciated. And you've dug up the ground for us. And thank you. And they looked at me, grunted, and they walked on the trailer. And the guys were just shaking their heads because they had been trying for a couple of hours to load the pigs. So there's a little edgy pig one for you.
May I ask, as far as factory farming in the United States, especially in animals that are in that realm, do they, just for my own peace of mind, do they know that they're coming into this life to have that experience, or is it?
I think for me, it's an issue worldwide, not just in Canada and the States. It's everywhere that I've traveled, is the I would maybe like to try and call it the mismanagement of animals and the way that they are raised and the lack of respect. And I do think there's, I communicate with plants. Plants have a consciousness as well, and we do body talk for plants. It's amazing. So everything has a consciousness. And I would highly recommend people look at Temple Grandin's work, because she can communicate with animals in nature, and the cows told her what the slaughterhouse should look like, and there should be a spiral, and why there should be, because they were willing to share their flesh because they weren't attached to it on a spiritual level. But could you create a way that the cow could walk in a circular fashion to let go of any of the fear and mismanagement out of the meat, so that the frequencies of the meat would be a very healthy thing for humans to eat? And so I'm more on that page of the husbandry, the respect, and then when they do go to give up their physical bodies, that we have a respectful way of sharing that time with them. And then that respects the animal, but also in relation to the meat that we're eating or the vegetables that we're eating, that fear is a frequency and it stays in the meat, and then we eat it, and it affects our thoughts and how we feel. So I don't know if that helps a bit, but I would highly recommend some of Temple Grandin's books as well.
Loesje, thank you so much. I could talk to you for days. So if there's any thoughts you'd like to share before we go, or I know you have a wonderful story about the elephants on your Linking Awareness website, so I'd invite people to go and tune into that there. And I just really appreciate you taking the time and all you do to link awareness for us all here on our wonderful planet. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and so I will finish with, please get a hold of myself or my facilitators. We all are willing to travel. If you have a group of 15 or more, we'd love to come and share this 3-day experiential class with you. If you're interested in body talk, please look me up. If you have questions, email me. We'll answer your questions about the classes and the prerequisites to take the body talk for animals. There's a body talk access for animals class that is very powerful for lay people to learn 5 basic techniques and a fast aid procedure in 2 days for your own animals. And so there's that. I am also really excited about another project I'm doing in Sumatra with 66 elephants. And this will be in February. And I am sponsoring all of the veterinarians, the mahouts, and the biologists in that area to take both classes with me, Linking Awareness, Body Talk Access for Animals, and I am more than happy to receive sponsorship to help pay for that project for these veterinarians in Indonesia. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, get a hold of me as well, and I certainly appreciate your support for some of my projects I do in parts of the world where people don't have money to pay for these kind of classes. So, and most of all, Jessica, thank you for your passion and your willingness to take the time to do these kind of interviews and to share them with people. And hopefully all of your people will keep sharing it and sharing it and sharing it. And the concept of equilibrium and peace starts from within.
Thank you, Loesje. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Love and light.
And back at you.